KDP mistakes and other stuff. That is basically an accurate description of this video, as it's a bit of a mishmash, but essentially I want to talk about a couple of issues that I've faced that I've never talked about before, one of which happened quite recently and one of which happened a long time ago. There are downsides to publishing on KDP, and that's also important to highlight. So hopefully by making this video, some of you will avoid making the same mistakes. So a very long time ago, I had 2 books blocked on KDP, and I did want to make a video about it at some point after the fact, but I basically moved on and just forgot about it basically. But I'd already recently at that point had quite a few negative experiences with Amazon customer services, like the endless canned responses, and I just didn't want to go back down that rabbit hole again, so I pretty much just tried to move on and forget about it. Essentially what happened was I'd actually published 2 very similar books under a different pen name. They were a type of planner with prompts in it, and normally this would be absolutely okay if it was with the same author name, but the error that I made was that I published 2 very similar books under 2 different pen names. So there was just some mild variation with the prompts and interior. Both covers were unique but were a similar style because they were meant to be under the same brand. And KDP basically thought this would lead to a negative customer experience, which of course it would, because if you buy from 2 unique authors, you expect 2 unique books. And added to this, there was actually already one of these books out there. It was published as well under the same brand. I'm not sure why they didn't just put the books back into draft and ask me to put them under the same pen name, and I probably could have easily contacted them and asked them to reverse the decision, but instead I just froze and I freaked out and I left KDP well alone for probably several weeks. But this came up again recently because I almost had a book blocked again, and that leads to another mistake that I made. So a word of warning, you do need to be really cautious when you're editing books that are already published, especially those published some time ago. KDP's guidelines have become much stricter over the years, so while your book may have adhered to rules when it was first published, it could now be flagged for issues. And while Amazon isn't in the business of simply taking down anything historical that doesn't adhere to its current guidelines, issues will flag up if you edit old books, because this is an automated process. So it doesn't matter, what your reasons are, the fact that you published it 5 years ago. If it doesn't adhere to the guidelines today and you edit it, that is going to go back into the system and the automated process will flag it up. And this is one of the challenges with KDP, the fact that the guidelines can change at any time, and they do change. A book that complies with today's standards may not necessarily do so tomorrow. And one of the main problems, of course, is that key aspects of your book, like the title or the author name, are unchangeable. And of course, if you unpublish your book, you're going to lose all of your ranking, you're going to lose all of your reviews. There isn't any easy way around that. So due to Amazon changing their terms, this has led to the problem of what is deemed as unnecessary repetition of words in titles and subtitles. So in the past, this really wasn't an issue. If your book happened to repeat a word in the subtitle that was in the title, it would be fine. It would just pass the review process, no problems. But I did encounter an issue when I was trying to create a hardcover version of a book, and this happened to have a repeated generic word in the subtitle, and Amazon's automated process flagged this up, and I received one of those emails that everyone dreads, and it said that the book was going to be blocked in 5 days unless I made the necessary edits. But of course, it's impossible to make the necessary edits because this book has been published for years. So I did try and reply that the book had been published for years, and of course it wasn't possible to change the details that they were suggesting. But after several rounds of canned responses, it was simply repeated to me that the book was going to be blocked. So all the emails seemed completely automated until my 5th response. And that's when I finally did actually hear from a real person. The only difference that I'd made was I actually put the reference number of the conversation, which you can find in the email, and there's a reference number, and I put that in the title of the email with a hashtag, and that seemed to make the difference. So I don't I don't know if it did or not, but I did hear from a real person. Unfortunately, by that point, I was so freaked out, I actually just asked if I could unpublish the book rather than the book be blocked. I could have probably pleaded my case, and I have had some similar issues in the past where I have pleaded my case and I've actually sent screenshots of positive reviews of the book, like multiple review screenshots, and that has worked for me in the past. So I'd often get an email after that saying that they'd made a mistake, even though their point had actually been valid all along. But this time I was just freaked out and I wanted the problem to go away. So I simply asked for the book to be unpublished. And actually, at that point, the person who I was connected to was really, really friendly, very accommodating, and agreed that this was absolutely no problem at all. I could go ahead and unpublish the book and republish it, republish a new version with the edited title, and there was no problem. So I proceeded then to unpublish the book. Unpublishing this book, though, really wasn't easy because this book is usually in my top 10 bestsellers, and it actually made $1,000 last December, and it frequently makes $300 or $400 a month. So it was painful, to say the least, to unpublish it. Incidents like this can be incredibly stressful, but they also prompt you to reassess things in your own business. When a majority of your business relies on a platform like Amazon, you're always going to feel somewhat powerless. But this is true for any platform you may rely on, whether that's YouTube, Etsy, TikTok, or whatever. And yet again, I have been reassessing my own situation and thinking about focusing on other ventures outside of KDP. And I know I've banged on about this many times since I started on YouTube and since I started on KDP. And while I have started the odd thing, it's usually not stuck. But I am actually doing some things at the moment. I have already made a start on them, and I will update you in a future video. Ultimately, you will come across stumbling blocks and bumps in the road if you're in it for the long haul on KDP, but it's just the nature of the game. And just keep a lookout for any potential rule changes and avoid editing your older books if you're unsure. KDP will also leave messages in the KDP community under announcements as well. Okay, so that is all for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in KDP and related business ventures, then stick around and subscribe if you haven't already and you like this kind of stuff. Please do leave a comment if you have any questions. And thank you again for watching. I will speak to you again very soon.